From the heart of Orlando, Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media. And I am your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski, and I am glad you have joined me in my neighborhood. Welcome. And I am glad that we have another time to join hand in hand as we think about rethinking what it means to be Americans, and most importantly, what it means to be neighbors that love their neighbor as themselves. So what does a neighbor's choice stand for? I want you to think about that. What does it mean to have a love for your neighbor? That's the question. That's the mystery I ask you to think about on the program today. And I want you to first just breathe with me. Breathe in the fresh air of freedom. Breathe it and then understand that right now there are thousands of people who think just like you, who are waking up. They're tired of toxic groupthink. They're tired of living in fear and hatred and blame games. And they're ready. They're ready for a new dawn, a new age in which we can all come together and solve problems ourselves rather than relying on tribes and all the old, outdated, stinky ideas that we used to be stuck in. All those things are in the driver's seat of history. And now, you and I, and millions of people like us, are making a neighbor's choice. They're choosing mercy over blame games. They're choosing mercy over sacrifice. So as we breathe in that fresh air of freedom together, thinking about what possibilities we can solve if we stop relying on government to dictate us what we should think, how we should eat, what we should put in our bodies, and even how we could take care of our own property at home. Today is a jam-packed show. It's a show with neighbors just like you, people like my friend. Once again, we have Dr. Weiping Yu. He'll be coming on the program. You don't want to miss it. One of the top physicists of NASA at Kennedy Space Center, just a few miles down from where I am here right now in Orlando, Florida. He'll be talking about new technologies that we can solve ourselves through self-sacrificial love of our neighbor, wanting to solve problems rather than blame other people and just sit like sitting ducks. Those days are over, folks. We are in a new era, a new chance, a new opportunity to solve things as long as we work together and work together hard and tough and never give up. I want all of us to think right now, have you ever been to a football stadium? You'll notice when you go to a football stadium, there's tens of thousands of people. And right now, tens of thousands of people in stadiums, football sizes, are all with us. They're with us in the declaration that it's time for the renewal of our minds, the removal of groupthink, the idea that, the best days are behind us. No, ladies and gentlemen, the best days are ahead of us. But we have to get the ideas that are going to solve those problems, not relying on central planners in Washington. They don't know anything. They're just like you. They just have more things to mess up because they have a big, giant monopoly that can have a big bureaucracy. They don't have anything different other than you, except for more opportunities to make mistakes without receiving the responsibility for making those mistakes. So if you want to be a part of the discussion, we're going to be talking to another person that I can't wait to speak with. Her name is Nancy Nemhauser, and she is right here from Mt Dora, just near where I am. And she has a victorious story of how she overcame wrongful persecution by the local city council. It's been all over today. It's been all over in People magazine and CNN. All the top news stories, Fox News have been covering it, how she beat the city council because they were persecuting her about what color, what kind of painting she put on her house. And so we're going to learn the story from a mother and a father who stuck to their conviction. They didn't rely on groupthink. They didn't submit to the bad ideas of the old, outdated collectivist notions that we're shedding quickly. They stuck to the dignity of personhood, the idea that people have the right to do what they want, so long as they're not harming anybody else. So as you think about those stadiums, they're surrounding us right now. And I can guarantee you that A Neighbor's Choice doesn't just include my radio show, in which you're all here with me now. It also includes the articles I write about at the top media outlets around the world, sites like dailycaller.com, townhallfinance.com, which has my top story right there. If you go to townhallfinance.com, you'll see that top story about my latest article. And we have sites like The American Conservative, one of the most prestigious conservative sites in the world. They carry my work. And then I also am on social media. You can look me up, David Gornoski, on Facebook or YouTube. Type in my name, David Gornoski, or A Neighbor's Choice, and you'll find me there. And you can engage with me. You can be a part of this movement to reject groupthink and to work towards personhood, to solve the problems, solve our healthcare problems, solve technology problems, solve clean energy, solve all the big problems, even money. We can solve these things ourselves. We don't need central planners. Those days are over. They're over, folks. And now I want you to think, as just imagine those stadiums. They're resonating with us right now. Tens of thousands of people reading the articles, being a part of the movement of A Neighbor's Choice, and they're deciding, no more. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to turn off the TV. Well, I'm going to turn off Facebook. I mean, just a few days ago, I was talking about how Facebook is not even going to probably be here in a few, a couple years. And now we see the headlines just a couple of days later, they're plunging. So things that you think are going to be fixtures that will control, regulate what you're allowed to say and all this kind of censorship, they seem big, but they're kind of like paper tigers. They pop really quick and things shift. And never take the future for granted. Always understand that it's up to you. And I know there are people, I know there's someone out there listening right now, and you have a great idea. You have an idea that can change the world. And you're listening to people, I know, and they tell you, oh, that's too crazy. That's too wild. You can't do that. It's not possible. I want you to know it's not true. You have great ideas, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. If you want to call 407-916-5400, tell us your great idea or share it with me privately. You can email me, david@aneighborschoice.com. That's david@aneighborschoice.com if you would like to tell me your great idea that you want promotion for. And we'll put you on the radio. We'll put you all over social media. We'll put you on the top pages of all these different conservative news sites. That's what we're going to do here on A Neighbor's Choice. This is not just a show, folks. This is a movement about mercy and love and renewal of our minds, not letting fear dominate our hearts, but letting the light, beautiful fresh air of freedom fill us all as we join together for a new era of freedom and prosperity. No more games, folks. We're going to work together. So in the next segment, you'll find one of those stories of a neighbor just like you who fights for their freedom. You're listening to Neighbor's Choice Radio on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. I'll see you in just a second.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?
Welcome to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And thank you for joining me here in my neighborhood here in Orlando, Florida. And I have a great treat today. I have someone who is a personal hero of mine for what she was able to go through in her pursuit of her freedom and her constitutional rights. And she has been victorious. And she's here from Mt Dora. Her name is Nancy Nemhauser, and she's been all over the media, folks. She's been on Today and CNN and Fox News, all the major stories because of what she had to go through in the city council. Now, can you imagine? I think in America you should have the right to paint your house whatever you'd like. I know there's HOAs, but if you're not in an HOA, you should be able to have the freedom as long as you're following the codes and trying to do what is pleasing to the law of the land. But unfortunately, in this day, there's people who, they just get so caught up in power hunger that they take advantage of people, and they take advantage of people who want to be different. And on A Neighbor's Choice, we're all about highlighting neighbors just like you who say, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to stand up for my freedom. I'm not going to cave into fear because I'm on the right side of history. So, Nancy, thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, just for those who have not heard, Nancy, she lives in Mt Dora, and she decided to paint her house, beautiful house, in the style of Vincent van Gogh, in a Starry Night, which is a famous painting, beautiful painting. And I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you. Initially, however, we had planned to just paint the wall, and I had asked for permission, gotten permission, and told that there were no permitting requirements and that there were no restrictions on what we could paint. We painted the wall, and when we began, we were cited with a code violation for graffiti. And I was told that the wall had to match the house. And that's when we decided, okay, if the wall has to match the house, let's paint the house.
Okay.
And our artist worked diligently in the heat of summer to get the house to match the wall. And when we got to the first hearing that the city brought against us, they did drop the graffiti claim and then said our house was a sign, S-I-G-N.
Okay, and now it doesn't look like a sign to me. It's a piece of art, and it's a good replication of the Vincent van Gogh painting. And I'm also joined here with Jeremy Talcott with Pacific Legal Foundation. Jeremy and Pacific Legal, they helped you with fighting against this unjust action by the City Council of Mt Dora.
Oh, big time. They helped us phenomenally. We wouldn't be here where we are today had it not been for Jeremy and the Pacific Legal Foundation team.
So, Jeremy, can you tell us why you chose this story?
Well, first, thanks for having me on, David. And, really as soon as I got the call from Nancy and she described what was going on, it just instantly appealed to us because it was both an issue of, what should you be allowed to do with your private property, which is something that Pacific Legal cares very deeply about, but also, how should you be able to express yourself and how should, what sort of limits should government be able to place on your right to express yourself? So the fact that it really touched both of those things instantly made it intriguing to me, and also just the fact that it was pretty clear to me from the first time Nancy described what was going on that it was some actors in government kind of picking on someone because of a message or a piece of art they just didn't like, and that's just fundamentally unfair.
Yeah, I call that the petty banality of evil and wrongdoing. And, of course, things are not black and white. People have good intentions here mixed in with bad, but we just can't allow our country to lose its constitutional freedoms, the freedom of property, the freedom of expression. And, Pacific Legal Foundation, the website pacificlegal.org, if you want to see what they're doing, they are helping a lot of people for free speech and all kinds of personhood principles that we should all get behind here. But I wanted to go back to Nancy. Now, can you tell us, why did you want to paint the Vincent van Gogh? You had a story about that with your family.
Yes, my husband, Lubeck, and I have a son who has autism, and he is particularly captivated by Vincent van Gogh's work, and especially Starry Night. So that was the reason why we had begun it. And he has a tendency to elope, and his language is impaired as a result of his autism. Mm-hmm. When he is frightened or alarmed, for example, if he were to elope and someone stopped him, police or a stranger, he might be unable to speak as well as he might be with us.
Sure.
So we hoped he would be able to say, take me to the Starry Night house or take me to the Van Gogh house.
Right.
And he's learned both of those, and actually he independently now calls it the Starry Night house. So that is great. Yes.
Yeah, very good. And you said he really enjoys the painting. It calms him. And
it is very calming for him. It's relaxing. He will go out onto the balcony and just look at the art. When we pull into the driveway, he's looking forward to it. If we're out and he wants to go home, he'll say, take me to the Van Gogh house. And that's his way of expressing himself. And we're very grateful to have had that opportunity. And in addition, my husband is from Poland. He was raised behind the Iron Curtain.
Okay.
And he takes his constitutional rights very seriously. He worked very hard for them. He worked for 10 years to become a United States citizen, a proud United States citizen. And he paid, he said, nearly a year's salary to achieve that. So he was unwilling to give up his constitutional rights, and he said he was willing to lose the house in order to make that point.
And I think in the land of the free, here it is, 2018 AD, that a mother and a father should be able to love their child and give them the comfort and protection they need on their own property. That's a basic, essential human freedom, and we should take that very precious. We should not be flippant with that freedom. And I'm glad, I for one am glad that you stood your ground and went all through this ordeal. You've been under a lot. I mean, you told me your health has been hurt and other people have had a really hard time, because it's hard to deal with bullies, especially when the government just comes on you with this relentless group think for, oh, you can't paint your house like Vincent van Gogh's painting. But if you want to join in and ask a question, you can do it at 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. I'm speaking here with Nancy Nemhauser and Jeremy Talcott with the Pacific Legal Foundation, discussing how they were able to resist through a very wonderful, well, it was a very hard process, but a very wonderful outcome, because
Indeed.
You guys are victorious as of so take us, what were they going to threaten you with here?
Well, they put a lien on our home, and they fined us $100 a day up to the value of the house. And Jeremy's firm filed a federal suit and quickly filed a motion for a temporary restraining order, and they achieved that temporary restraining order. And that was the beginning of a much better situation. Jeremy, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Nancy said, we asked for a temporary restraining order to stop those daily mounting fines, which were raising at $100 a day, and that was granted the very next day by the judge, which stopped those fines and gave us the breathing room to go forward and pursue the lawsuit without the worry of, even though Lubeck was willing to lose the house if necessary, we wanted, of course, to try and avoid that.
So, folks, when I think about, here, give me a piece of advice here. This is for the radio audience. If I am an individual and I live in a neighborhood and there's no HOA and it's just a place where I can express myself, and if I see my neighbor has a house and they've painted it in a way that I don't like, I just don't like it, do you think it's right for me as a person to go to their house and demand that they pay me money or I'll steal it from them as a punishment until they change their house color to meet something that I particularly like? I find that so ridiculous and so absurd, and I think you do too. And I'm so glad, Nancy, that you stood through and you were victorious. So they're putting all these fines. They tell you it's graffiti at first. Then they realize that's not going to work to mask their pettiness.
Right.
And so they change it to, it's a sign. It's advertising. Right. But now you told me before that when you painted this beautiful paint, where you had this artist paint it, you told him, don't sign your name so there's no case that you're trying to advertise.
That is absolutely correct. There is no signage on it at all. It is purely art. He has not, our artist Richard Barrenechea has not signed it because we didn't want to have a problem with that. So the fact that they called it a sign was, we felt that they were grasping at straws, and they subsequently said it was a safety hazard. If it had been such a safety hazard, why would they have completely given in?
Right.
Because it's no less or more than a safety hazard than it was 2 weeks ago. But now they're fine with it, it seems, and I think it's because they realize that Pacific Legal was not going to let them get away with it.
Well, very good. And Jeremy, I appreciate what you're doing. Have you ever heard of a situation similar to this and other cases that you have dealt with at Pacific Legal Foundation?
Well, this was a very unique and interesting situation because, as I mentioned, it wasn't just a paint job or kind of your typical aesthetic ordinances that was being used. It was a piece of art, so that was actually a little bit unique. But it's certainly not something that hasn't been seen elsewhere, which is oftentimes people can disagree about what is art, and there have certainly been some instances, even in Florida, that I can think of people who have put structures on their lawn, things like that, and say it's art, and city officials disagree. So it can certainly be a kind of, as I said, an interesting situation where free speech and property rights kind of overlap. But I think a question everyone should ask themselves is, do we really want government making the call of what qualifies as art or not art on our private property?
Right. I just find that it seems so petty. And I think it's just, again, a product of groupthink. When you get locked up in, oh, I'm in the ritual of city council, I'm the one who, I can tell people what I want to do. It gets to the power trip. It gets a really ridiculous power trip, and I think it never really turns out well.
This was clearly an abuse of power by the city, and I'm so glad that we prevailed, because to have it happen to our neighbors and community would be dreadful for them to have to go through what we've gone through. So I'm hoping that they will rethink their position in the future and treat their citizens more judiciously and carefully.
And I think we can avoid all this if we take lessons of principles that we can apply to say, if someone has not harmed anyone. Now, of course, if you sign a contract, which you did not in this case here in Mt Dora with the Starry Night house, if you sign a contract, you need to abide by the terms that you voluntarily agreed to. But if you're just minding your own business and you're not harming anybody, you're not threatening anybody, you're not trying to defraud anyone, you're not stealing, you're not trying to assault or anything violent, you should be left alone. And when we get around that principle and we start applying it to all these different issues, it'll make our lives a lot simpler, and we can all kind of get along a little bit the way we should be as neighbors, not as, picking fights over stuff that are so petty.
Indeed.
So I think that your story is a testament to the power of freedom, and I think it's a testament to people standing up for what is right, no matter what City Hall wants to say. And we'll be right back here. We've got a lot more to talk about, and I'm so glad Nancy Nemhauser is in the house with us. She's from Mt Dora, and she was victorious in being able to express herself in her house. We'll be right back on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. We'll be right back. And welcome back, folks, to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm your neighbor, David Gornoski, and I'm so glad you could join me today here live in Orlando, Florida. If you'd like to be a part of the discussion, you can be a part of it at 407-916-5400. And I am so glad to be joined in studio with Nancy Nemhauser, and she lives just up the road in Mt Dora, and she's triumphant because she has just had a settlement with the city of Mt Dora, and they have decided to back off. They're going to let you keep your house in the beautiful painting of the Starry Night because they found that they had no case to be messing with you.
That is correct. And my husband insisted that they apologize to us, and they did issue a public apology.
Very good. See, in the ancient days, when they would have all these ancient tribal communities and they wanted to go after a witch hunt or some kind of heretic, they would make that heretic confess, but you reversed it. And that's beautiful because you didn't give in. You didn't say, oh, yeah, I'll give in. You stood your ground. You did it beautifully, and now you're triumphant. And I want others to think about that while you're going through struggles like Nancy. And I have a caller here, Jonathan from Orlando. Hey, Jonathan, you're in a similar situation as Nancy.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Good. Yeah, you're from Orlando, and you said you had a similar situation with your house. What's going on?
Yeah, I have a situation where when the hurricane come through, we got delayed on our fence project in the yard, which was permitted about, 10 months prior to that, maybe.
Uh-huh.
And so since the permit expired and we didn't finish out the work, the county started fining us $100 a day.
My goodness.
Which, because of the hurricane and I'm a contractor, I was helping all kinds of people around the county, the Tri-County area. So I didn't even worry about my fence, I didn't think it would be an issue, but turned out there was like $24,000 or so in fines.
$24,000?
Accumulated, and then they moved to foreclose on it. They had the hearing on the 18th of July, and the commission approved it, the foreclosure. But then I received some email about maybe it was negotiated down, but I don't have any documented proof.
Wow. Well, man, that's a terrible thing to go through, and that sounds very similar to the kind of bullying that I mean, here you are, Jonathan, you're out there trying to help people. You're mending neighbors' fences. What's more quintessentially neighborly than that? In the midst of a hurricane, and there's people locked up in groupthink, and they can't see empathy. They just can't see empathy. Why do I need to take money from this man for a fence? And now you're trying to foreclose on the house. I'm sorry to hear that, Jonathan, but I'm glad here.
Yeah, I'm trying to help the community. I'm a licensed roofing contractor here, and I was just focused on helping people. And
well, what's your number? Do you have a number or a website for people to help you out so you can get through this ordeal? Go ahead and give it to us.
Yeah, my website is stormdamage.pro.
Okay.
And I sure would like some assistance with the legal stuff.
Well,
and I'm here to help homeowners with their.
Well, folks, there you have it. You hear Jonathan. He needs help. So give him a shout at his website. And thank you, Jonathan, for the call.
Good luck.
So I'm here with Nancy Nemhauser, and she just had a settlement with Mt Dora because she stood strong. She's been all over the news, and she put through all that persecution, physical health, mental stress, and you didn't back down. And so she is a testament to standing firm when people locked up in herd behavior. They actually are a paper tiger. When you stand up, you don't blink, you don't flinch, you don't apologize, and you made them apologize. And that's a beautiful thing.
That is correct, yes. And it was difficult. It was truly very painful at times, but I am glad that we persevered.
Were you able to sleep?
I was going to say that we lost a lot of sleep. I lost a lot of sleep.
Did you have nightmares and things like that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just like
health
recurring
issues.
things?
Yes.
We don't, folks, we don't need to do this to our neighbors. You know this. We all know this. And there's so many people, just like Nancy out there in America, who they feel like they don't have any hope. But if we work together and we get the right help, we can join together and solve this. Nancy, what were you saying?
Well, and that is very important in this situation because the city did not speak with us. We were just given a citation.
Just like a number.
Code violation, exactly.
And that dehumanizes you.
Right.
Can't you just talk to me as a person?
Right.
Let's have dinner, right? Just talk it over, figure it out.
And then when I was told that, when I made the contact, when I was told that the wall had to match the house, and we went through a great expense to have the wall match the house by painting the house, some of it is 2 stories, they then dropped the graffiti claim and said it was a sign. So it was very frustrating for us.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad you persevered. And I think it's not going to set necessarily a legal precedent, but it certainly will be a powerful cultural precedent. You were telling me you've heard from people all over who are so happy they painted the Vincent van Gogh Starry Night painting?
Yes.
Just like your house, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Wow. And it's so good to know that America has not lost its faith in freedom. Jeremy, give us some more insight about what we can do to make sure that we can strengthen people just like Nancy who are going through dark times, losing sleep, nightmares, just for painting a house. Let's give people some hope. Tell us some things that we can do to be involved.
Well, certainly, I may be biased in this regard, but, looking for organizations who do help people fight back, such as Pacific Legal. We are completely donor supported, and in return, everyone that we represent for free. So supporting organizations that help that sort of thing is great. But, one other thing that obviously I think in Mt Dora and elsewhere, Mt Dora, because of our lawsuit and because of that Nancy and Lubeck fought back, Mt Dora is going to have to revise their sign code. And I think one thing people can keep in mind is, when government is talking about these types of codes and how they will legislatively make changes, we should be pushing for more freedom rather than less. And, there's no reason that Mt Dora needs to have any code that prohibits someone painting their house in any way that they want, which currently they don't. So we should think about what the proper scope of this local government kind of enforcement of people's property really needs to be.
And that's your website is pacificlegal.org. Get involved. Go find out what Jeremy and his organization do. They just helped Nancy turn a nightmare into a victory.
They certainly did.
And, I've told you, Nancy, you went through a lot of stress, and it's no consolation, so to speak, but in the grand scheme of things, you've been all over the world, and you've set a precedent to say, look, you don't have to bow down to the mob. You can stand up and have your rights protected. And you did that, and you're a hero for that.
Thank
you. I hope that, that you guys can have a lot of restful nights and go on a lot of, get some vacations, get some fresh air, and enjoy the neighborhood as best as you can, now that you've had this victory.
Right. And we can enjoy the pre-existing murals that were in Mt Dora.
Right. That's another thing. There was other murals all around. Right. Mt Dora is a very artsy town, and there's a lot of murals. So it was very petty. And even here we saw with the caller, Jonathan, where he's trying to mend fences for his neighbor, and then they want to take his house for it. Folks, it's not that simple. If there's no victim, if there's no violence being done, leave people alone. Let them have freedom. And politics is downstream from culture. So when we have these media experiences like we're doing right now and all over the world, when we tell the truth about how ugly it is to be mean, to steal, or threaten to take your house for something like that,
right,
we are changing history. We're a part of a renewal of the mind from the culture, so culture will be the primary mechanism to move this kind of bad behavior in the ash heap of history, because that's what we all want.
That's correct. You are right.
So, Nancy, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I think that you are, again, an inspiration, and I want other people, look up Starry Night House, read the story. They ended up, how much did they spend at the end of it? $55,000?
Over $55,000.
$55,000, folks, just to try to stop someone's freedom. Well, they lost, folks. Nancy is a hero, and she's here to tell us about it. Thank you so much for this. I've enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you, Jeremy, at pacificlegal.org. Check out their site. They were helpful in doing this. This is a Neighbor's Choice Radio on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. We'll be right back, folks. And welcome back, folks, to a Neighbor's Choice Radio. I am your neighbor, David Gornoski, and right now, millions of people are making the same choice you are by joining a Neighbor's Choice. In all of my articles all around the internet, right now on the top pages of dailycaller.com, AmericanConservativeTownHall.com, the list goes on and on. People are catching the bug. They're catching the bug for freedom and the fresh air of personhood, not groupthink. We just spoke in the last segments with Nancy Nemhauser, who's a personal hero of mine, here in Orlando, Florida. She's in Mt Dora, and she overcame ridiculous groupthink and violence, and she was able to overcome the Mt Dora city council trying to persecute her for her house, and she was victorious. And that's a testament to the power of conviction, the power of never giving up, of dignity and respect for your own property and your own life and your own free thinking. And joining me now once again for our science segment, our future look at tomorrow that's happening today. All of these things, they're not taken for granted. They need people just like you right now. And we are joined by people all over the world. I actually just got a message from someone from Ethiopia. It's a beautiful country. It's got great coffee. But Dr. Yu here, he is from Kennedy Space Center, a legendary physicist, one of the most requested speakers in that field. All around, you've reached hundreds of thousands of people. Dr. Yu, welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice.
Thank you, David, for having me back. Can I say Nancy, your interview, she's such a sweet and a soft-spoken lady. But she could stand up with the biggest, powerful government.
Right.
And even willing to sacrifice her house.
That's right. And
for fighting for justice. That's so inspiring.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how tall you are, how big you are, what your voice is. You know, I'm a big guy. I tell people my name's David, but I could also play Goliath. Wow. I could be a one-man play. But it doesn't matter because here's Nancy with a soft-spoken voice with conviction, and her husband overcome all odds and beat a bullies in the city council, and now they have justice. So, Dr. Yu, you are another hero. You are someone who is willing to rethink hundreds of years of sacred cows. And I know you have fans all over the world. You're just talking about going to Greece and Brazil and all these places. You're all over the place. So thank you for being here.
Okay. I just want to mention one of the questions your viewer raised the last time. Remember, we shared one of my research, results. Say, electricity. The group thinking about the electricity is a flow of electron, it's a flow of particles.
Right.
But what I find is actually there isn't no particle flowing inside the conducting wire. So this is a totally different concept. And your viewer mentioned the question. Actually, he said, David, I'm sorry, electron does flow. The reason? Because we counted number of electrons in our definition of amp. So we counted. So I thought, that's a great question. So I mentioned about the electron, the smallest particle. So no one ever can see it. And no one ever could see it because it's billions of times even smaller than atom. Now the smaller the size we can see is atom. So that's a billions times smaller than atom. And also the travel too fast. So how they counted? They counted is a vibration waves. They counted the cycles. So that's how they counted. Okay.
That's your definition of electricity.
Exactly. That's a vibration. Waves. Electricity is not the flow of electron. It's a vibration of electron.
That's why when I tell people that this is the most electrifying show in media right now, we're resonating, right?
Yes, we're resonating with the world. There is no particle traveling through his studio to the world. So it's the medium. It's a vibrating medium.
So you're telling me when they tell me go make waves that it's literally true. Go make waves.
That's exactly true.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Is the human mind, does it have some kind of resonance too, that it can have an energy that you can transfer to other people? Is there anything to that?
Yes. So we heard about all the energy forms. We can cite about it. Say heat, sound, electricity, and the light. It's all fundamental motion is vibration.
Wow.
So that's how humans feel heat.
Right. That's why when you go into someone in a room, right?
Right.
And you just feel a bad energy, like there's a dangerous person, and you don't know how to explain it. You're saying there's a physical element to that.
There are physical elements because the thoughts, remember, the thoughts is a vibration frequency, has frequencies. So different feelings, different thoughts, of course, operated at different frequencies. When you receive, the frequency are not in sync with you, is a disrupt coherence frequency.
Right.
So they counterbalance you, so you will feel naturally uncomfortable.
So in the case with Nancy, who we just spoke with on the show, she was faced with a city council that didn't even care that her son needed that painting to be on the house for his comfort, for his health.
Right.
They didn't care about that. They just wanted to threaten to take their house and everything. What's going on in their minds? Are they locked in a groupthink resonance? What's going on?
I believe because they did not know the cause. Once Nancy mentioned about it, once she stood up, she explained this is for medical needs. I believe at that time, so they started feeling a similar resonance. So I believe they toned down a little bit.
That's right. And then eventually they caved in when they realized they were getting exposure to a lot of people also agreeing with her. They felt that resonant energy, right?
I believe that resonance. So Nancy's case resonates with basically all neighbors, right? So not only outside in, I do believe inside out from city councils. I believe once they listen to the story, just like me,
everybody's human.
Everybody human will feel the same feeling.
So that tells us that if we stand with our full heart, in our full mind, body, and soul, in our conviction, We can change the world, and we can break the hearts of even hardened people who have no empathy when they're locked in a group. When we bring them out as individuals,
Yes.
we break that frequency, right? That kind of, that locked in. It's almost like possession. They're almost like possessed by the group, right?
That's really good. So that's something different between group thinking with individual identity.
Right.
Individual, you can resonate each individual, but the group thinking, you lost of individual feeling. You are not resonant, becomes abstract law, coldest, so that's how I believe depends on the individual will have a most impact.
So when we talk about freeing people from groupthink on this show, and here I am talking with legendary physicist Dr. Weiping Yu, he is at NASA, and he's one of the rocket scientists on the cutting edge of science. We talk about groupthink all the time, and it's such a problem in our culture. It's about physics, ultimately.
Fundamentally, the foundation is about physics. I wanted to explain another secret, if you have time.
Sure.
Do you? Okay. So since we mentioned about electricity is not really flow particle, it's a vibration. So now we can solve another mystery. Maybe not cared by everyday people, but for electrical engineering professors, students, they wanted to know how we can generate electricity by just rotating coil inside a magnetic field. That's how we did it. I have never solved because pressure. It actually, when you rotate the periodic motion, you create vibration. It's not create a constant one directional pressure.
So it's vibration. If we understand this view of electricity, what's possible? Can we have clean energy? Can we have a self-reliance based system?
Yes, because once we understand how electricity is being generated, so we know how light can interact with electricity.
We'll have to cut it there. You'll have to find out next week. More secrets of clean energy with my friend Dr. Weiping Yu. You've been listening to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. I'm David Gornoski. We'll see you next week, Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. Godspeed.